Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sturge Matzocchi. I'm the Soccermetrics pioneer at Pro Soccer Development. And we've created the most advanced professional soccer development system commercially available in the world. And we feel we can say this with confidence, given the market research, given the other development systems out there, and given our patented player rating system that produces the unique insights and results. Now, what we wanted to do is to display to you today how the PSD system can separate performance at the very highest level and how that can drive future performance and development. And before we start, it's important we understand why this was created or why we're here. And it came to the end of the season and there was a need to produce some player assessments. And I've been coaching the professional game for over 10 years and there wasn't a blueprint for players to follow that clearly defines everything they need to know to become a successful football player. And so in these modern times, given the technology available, we feel that we're failing our players and not providing them with the necessary resources. And so an assessment that's clear and simple enough for everyone to use, that has the depth required and is intuitive enough to seamlessly empower the players to own and control their development. And so drafting and designing began, producing version after version, and then that's when we had the breakthrough. We invented a patented system and method for organising and training team soccer players. And that is the foundation of what the PSD system is today and what it will evolve to in the future. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a background and an understanding of why this was created. The first part of the presentation is to demonstrate how the PSD system can separate performance at the very highest level using two players that much debate has been had about who's the best player or who performs at a higher level. The stats out there and the honours that they've been decorated with are very even and making it difficult to separate them. Of course, they are Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo using the PSD system to separate performance. Okay, so we've been working alongside Sky Sports to produce in-depth player analysis, and obviously Sky Sports have lots of resources available in terms of what they can analytically do, and they have Opta stats and everything. However, when they want to produce a particular performance comparison, that's where we use the PSD system to provide them with those results. We feel we can give essentially those displays far ahead of any other competition. So we produced some analysis for them in the run-up to the Manchester City-Manchester United derby this season on Wayne Rooney and David Silva, and then more fittingly on Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo in the 6 games running up to the end of the La Liga season. And this is what we're going to use to display the depth and power of the PSD system. So, imagine your first question is, how are the player ratings produced? And before we go into the detail of that, it's important we understand what we're trying to achieve here. And that's produce a tactical performance measure, and we're getting that down to one number, so that any member of staff within an organisation, whether it's a player, a coach, it can be easily understood by anybody, and that's what we're trying to produce. The first thing we need to define is skill competency, which is simply performance at that level of play. So you need to take the performance measurement of the skills versus high and low level opponents, and that will give you enough of a range to produce that skill competency. Now, for the analysis between Messi and Ronaldo, we did a 6-game analysis, which is more of a form guide. However, there was a very good range versus high and low level opponents to give us a great indicator in terms of the performance level for them. Though we would say to get a true, a more in-depth skill competency, you'd increase the sample size. From there, what do you need? Decide the result. So as we said, we want to produce a tactical performance measure to define position strength. Once we've defined the result that we want, we then need to design the metrics that are required along that path to produce that result. And those are the standards of measurement that we're required to, what are the standards of measurement to generate that? And the final part of it, you apply the system. So a system of, our PSD system, algorithms and mathematics are applied to those metrics to then produce the results. So in summary, you define skill competency, you decide the result that you want to get, you design the metrics to go towards that result, and then you apply the system to apply to the metrics to design the result. And that gives you a brief summary of the science behind how we're going to produce all these player ratings. So, first comparison, Lionel Messi on the left, Cristiano Ronaldo on the right. And if you notice at the top, these aren't stats that we've called the heading at the top, they're key metrics. So those standards of measurement towards the result, and we want to see a tactical performance measure, essentially. So starting from the left, moving across to the right, you have the skill, attempts per game, success rate, and then the completes per game. Whereas then there's two key results there, which is success rate, so how efficient is a player at performing that skill, or how superior is the performance, and then the completes per game, and we would also call that frequency. So what's the frequency? And that's in terms of benchmarking a positional requirement. So from a centre midfielder or an attacker, what are we looking for in terms of how many completes per game as a benchmark from a certain position? So those are the key indicators to drive the difference in performance measurement here. So working from the left then, we have from the top, we have name of skill, attempts per game. So we've got Lionel Messi attempted 1v1 attacking skill moves, 11.5 attempts per game at 93% success rate, which ended up in 10.7 completes per game, versus Ronaldo's 6.3 completed per game at an 84% with 7.5 from a 7.5 attempts. Now, that's a large separation in performance measurement. And when we're looking at that towards a result, then now we can really see how the PSD system can conclusively separate performance at the very highest level. So just going through some of them, we'll go through the detail on them. So goals, the finishing, Messi is superior, 40% to 25% more efficient, 1 per game to 0.7. Long distance shooting, no goals were scored over the 6-game analysis from 1.7, 3.2 attempts. Attacking heading, they both got 20% in terms of success rate. So similar skill competency level. Now, here's a great example of how depending on the frequency, which is your completes per game, what is the requirement of the position? So, if we take a look at that in terms of a striker attacking heading, it depends what your profile is. Do you need a striker that completes 0.5 per game, is attempting more and completing more? Do you have that type of style that would benefit in terms of performance by having somebody that attempts more and completes more rather than just the success rate? Or are you not that type of team? Are you not that concerned in your profile and 0.8 attempts and 0.2 completes in terms of your frequency? Is that what you need? So we're starting to really, depending on your requirements, and then this is 13 different skill sets in terms of techniques for the position. We have up to 65 skills to produce the rating. So how does the physical profile affect this? Do you need a striker that has upper body strength and height? Maybe their attacking shielding comes into the performance of that would empower your rating, or is it acceleration speed and maybe maximum speed and finishing combined? Or is it a combination of all of the above? And then if so, what order? So all of this is channeled in producing that one result. And by using this data, channeling that into channeling those metrics into the system, we can then produce the metrics and the results that are benefiting coaches and the teams in terms of performance. Crossing. So success rate slightly higher for Messi, 40% to 33%, similar completes per game. Again, to get your mind around the concept of designing the position profile to a winger, dependent on your philosophy, how important is crossing? Do you favour that over 1v1 attacking and running with the ball and maybe long distance shooting or not? What is your profile? Turning, you can see Messi superior, 95% to 81%, completing 6.7 to 4.2. And then tricks, 89%, so similar to 86, similar success rate with 4.2 completes per game each. Now, so many questions will be asked, well, okay, how does tricks apply to a performance rating? Is it to do with the flair, the variety of tricks and everything like that? And that's a great point where we can bring in the metrics now. So the metrics can be designed to any club's philosophy. In the PSD system, we've defined the metrics of a trick as a skill move that eliminates opponents. Okay, so now we're giving meaning to the results and the numbers. So for a trick, how many times do they complete the tricks? How many times do they have a skill move that eliminates opponents? When we define that on what the profile is for the player, we can then have that as a performance measure. Running with the ball, which is the next one, recognises opportunities to run with the ball and is successful in doing so. What's the frequency, given the position, of how many times a player in that position we want that player to be running with the ball to penetrate more. It can be totally designed to your philosophy. And then here's a really important one in terms of at the top level, disguise, okay? And so for disguise, it's so important at the highest level. And within a publication, a 13-skill publication, we couldn't fit in all of the metrics essentially. And it's important you understand the metrics before you just say, well, disguise, he completed, 10 point whatever disguises per game. Doesn't really make sense. So, but however, we define disguise as the ability to disguise your intention to fool an opponent to believe in you're performing a different skill. So when we were doing this analysis, we watched Barcelona game versus Espanyol, and some of you may remember. Messi played a raised pass out to Jordi Alba on the left-hand side, who did a first-time cross. Luis Suarez then goes to disguise to take the shot, which then confuses the goalkeeper and defender. It rolls across to Neymar, who then taps it in. Now, he hasn't even touched the ball. And so it's these events that happen within the game, these fine details that we capture within our metrics, that then will empower us to produce performance measurements that are further ahead of anything else that's out there at the moment. So that's a bit of background on your metrics, give you a real understanding of how this is all produced. Running with the ball, we've just been through a little bit of the metrics of that, 92% to 83%. Dribbling, similar success rate. However, Messi attempts 22.3 dribbles per game to Ronaldo's 9.2. Now, there again, how important is that to a centre attacking midfielder, to a winger? And it's about profiling that. Do you need a player that attempts lots? So that's important there. Through ball passing, interesting one here. So Ronaldo has a higher success rate at 77% to Messi's 63%. However, Messi completes 8.5 through balls per game to Ronaldo's 3.3. Now, given it's quite a specialist passing technique and it has lots of factors that come into play with that, in some ways, if somebody attempts more and you probably want more from a certain position of through balls, then maybe you might expect the success rate to decrease if you're attempting more. But the long-term goal is you get to complete more through balls, which give you more attacking efficiency, essentially. Now, from that, then what you're going to get is you're going to get the through balls, essentially, is going to be a part of that profile to support your performance measurement, okay? So, short passing. From Barcelona's philosophy, it's probably no surprise that Messi completes more. Again, you could say from somebody competing more, you're at risk, you're attempting more, you're at risk of having a lower success rate. And his success rate is still 93% to 84%, a large separation in terms of skill competency. We would certainly measure that. Raised passing, Messi's got an excellent success rate, 80%, 1.3 per game. Ronaldo didn't attempt any during the 6-game analysis. And then the final part here is one-touch passing, very difficult skill to perform at the highest level with everything happening so quickly. And Messi comes in with an emphatic 97% success rate with 11 completed per game to Ronaldo's 5 to 86% success rate. So that's all the numbers, and this is the PSD system standard metrics that we have in there. The system can be custom designed to any club or organisation philosophy. So the player ratings, we can design them in terms of what do you value as a right winger, as a centre attacking midfielder. Once we define that profile, we can then calculate the player ratings so you can channel your organisation towards hitting those benchmarks and performance measures. And that's going to help you with many ways in terms of tactically, which we're going to come on to in a moment. But this has clearly demonstrated the difference in performance and how the PSD system can separate performance at conclusively at the very highest level of football. So once you have all that data, remember when we talked in the beginning about the result that we wanted to define, a tactical performance measurement. So once we define that, we then feed all of that data into the system, which is then going to give you a player rating out of 100 for the different positions on the pitch. And it's probably no coincidence Messi, given the variety of high performance levels in skill set, has a higher performance measurement than Cristiano Ronaldo's. Is still very high at 92 out of 100. Messi at 94. Messi, again, 93 as a right wing attacker to Ronaldo's 90 out of 100 as a performance measurement. However, here's the interesting part. Here's almost the kicker. They had quite a varying range of skill competency across all the different skills. However, when those skills are profiled into position, we can see that left wing they're the same. And then if we look into the striker rating, you know, Ronaldo isn't, I suppose, punished or negated in some ways for some of the irrelevant skills towards that position. However, where he excels is the skills that are most important to the striker position. And then that way, Messi has an overall skill set that produces a performance rating of 93, and Ronaldo with a 93 as well. So that sort of will now give you an understanding of how we can then feed that data into the system to then produce the performance ratings. So that's how it works at the very highest level, where the Pro Soccer Development PSD system separates itself at the very highest level. Aside from the patented player rating system, it is that our system can work at every level of the game. It's meant from elite and premier levels through to youth and grassroots levels, providing validated data for the clubs to work and develop their players towards their philosophy. And here's a video introduction, essentially to give you an understanding of how it can work at every level, and we support the national drive essentially to increase the amount of elite English players playing at the highest level of club football.
September 2013. The Football Association chairman Greg Dyke set out what he described as the biggest single challenge facing the English game: the need to increase the number of elite English players playing at the highest level of club football. According to the chairman's report 1 year later in October 2014, coaching and coach development in clubs and at grassroots have not yet reached a satisfactory level and impact to address the problem. There are many reasons why the coaching situation hasn't reached a satisfactory level. An FA research team found that more needs to be done if we're to produce the next generation of top-class coaches to nurture our next generation of world-class players. There's little or no monitoring of coaching standards with no regulations enforced from the FA. Level 2 is where coaches can make a real difference in technique and game understanding, but the grassroots game is filled with level 1s. There are not enough educators or courses, and concerns about the cost of more advanced courses. Can so many problems covering such a large scale be solved in an impactful way and at an affordable price? There's only one outstanding solution: the most advanced professional soccer development system commercially available in the world, used in synergy by clubs, coaches, analysts and players, for elite and premier levels to youth and grassroots levels, powered by an exclusive and revolutionary player rating system, the PSD system. A fully customisable system specifically engineered to national organisation or individual club philosophies, with a single all-in-one product, supply evidence to surpass audits for all Premier League, EPPP, elite environment requirements, breakthrough coaching provision, quantitative numerical system of effective skill measurement and quality assurance, measuring all player records of achievement throughout their career at elite through to grassroots levels. The PSD system is revolutionising England's national game at every level.
Okay. So just loading up the player assessment there, and whilst that loads up for a moment, I just want to touch on how now we're going to move into the part where we've displayed how it can separate performance at the very highest level. Now we're going to show you how it can be how the PSD system can be used at every level of the game. You imagine these are the standard applications within this system, and they can be custom built, particularly to how the club would require it. Well, let's go through it. So, player assessment. There's a snapshot of the top part of the player assessment, and it's going to improve education with engaging assessments, essentially. And this is all about intuitive development. So, we're going to go into detail in a moment about the player ratings across the top, but that's going to give you the profile. So a player could this is for the player, and they would access this and they would say, okay, so we look at the player ratings from the left-hand side. You have the sweeper all the way through to striker on the right-hand side, and they can look at a performance rating and go, okay, I can see that centre defence I've got a high performance rating, and at left-wing attack I'm not so high. So we'll just go into a little bit more of a close-up on that. Rating out of 100 on the left-hand side, sweeper, centre defender, all the way through to striker. The player will have a look and they'll say, centre defence, you know, I'm an 88, and then at left-wing attack, I'm an 82. And so they'll go straight into that assessment. in a way, lots and lots of information, but presented in a very clear way for them to understand. They can go quickly understand and go, okay, I can see it's my passing skills, included with my receiving and some of that disguise and aerial ball control, that the areas that I'm going to do to improve that attacking position. And then I can see my strengths across in the other side of the bar chart there. So a simple display for the players to just quickly understand where they need to improve upon. Here's all of the philosophy and the blueprinting. So this truly is a system that you can blueprint your philosophy and DNA. So on the left-hand side, breaking all the way down using the 4 corners of long-term player development: technical, tactical, psychological, and physical. Then you have, for every single skill, you have the metric or the skill definition that everybody works towards. And these can be customized to any individual philosophy. So depending what you value and what you want to deliver as a club and as a coaching program, you can then have every player and coach and staff within your organization have it as a working knowledge to work along to. And so you can have templates for every different stage of development, depending on their age. You can go more position specific as they get older. And then obviously you can start to build in your video analysis. And it has the whole profile in terms of being intuitive. We have some of the numbers there. We're just going to go into that again, zoom in quickly. Here's an example. You know, we have the metric of short passing within the PSD system is defined as performs passes along the ground over a short distance using different parts of both feet. A player would look at that and say, my score is 85. We'll go into that in a second. But they can look at that and go, okay, so how do I improve my short passing? And there's a video on how you can do that. And we'll be building that archive of videos as well. So you have that full learning profile in many respects. So this is how it works at every level in terms of we have the PSD system, a PSD assessment method. And so we're now not saying as coaches or as assessors or scouts, I think the player is this. I think they're good at short passing. I think they're this level. We're saying, using our assessment method, we look at the blue right and across there. Technical assessment scores. Does a player perform the skills successfully in opposed situations or with pressure? So we're now set an environment that everybody must assess the players within to define the skill. That could be a small-sided game, it could be matches, whatever the organisation would prefer to use. They then apply the key to it, and they said there's 5 different levels of performance measurement. Is it development need, basic, moderate, strong, or exceptional skill competency level? The coach or the assessor assesses the player over a period of time. And then they say, okay, so at short passing, I've assessed the player in the opposed situation and with pressure, that they are successful 5 times out of 10 on average, and so that's going to give them a score of 80, as that's half of the time. So we're now reducing that subjective opinion of performance analysis at the lower levels where the resources aren't there to have video analysis, to have this, that. And you can now give them validated data, is what we would call it. And you can put in certain quality controls as well. There's already, by the setup and definition, there's a quality control whereby the coach is accountable to the player and the parent, I suppose, by the score that they give, and there could be a discussion to be had there. However, at clubs, they already have the level of structure within their organisation to say, if the lead coach produces the scores and the ratings and they believe they're accurate enough, then the foundation phase lead at that academy could then check the ratings, give that quality control before they distribute and give them out. So you can really put in those controls to ensure that you're getting good validated data, as well as using the assessment method to now give that real good value to those measurements at this level of play. So that really, really helps, and it really pushes the industry forward in terms of what we're using to assess our players now at every level. That's the first application. The second one, let's move it on. Player profiles. Just going to show you there, all the players. So this is a one-page display of all of the assessment scores. Player names across the top. Skills down the left-hand side. We've got the technical skills, just a little snapshot so you can see it. Technical skills across that left-hand side. A colour scheme, 79 or below is a moderate, that's red. Amber, 80 to 89 is strong. 90 to 100 is green, that's exceptional. So a coach can look at this. They've got every player in one place. They can quickly define and profile players. So if we look at, firstly, we have a development rating. So we have the assessment scores down there, and then we have essentially, we can accurately, the first part about the player profiles is something very important, where we can accurately forecast player potential. A player rating that will identify who'll improve the most and the quickest. And so you get that result from simply producing the assessment. The PSD system algorithms will do the rest. And okay, so how does it do it? So if we take a look at player 7 there, in that green there, he or she is in second place in terms of they're going to develop the most and the quickest. They're going to be second place for that. However, if you look at their technical assessment scores, if you're looking at them on the pitch and you've taken them in as a trialist over a 6-week period, something like that, look at them technically, they haven't got strong scores technically. However, the formula essentially to produce that one rating across those 65 skills, it uses a long-term player development model that to get that rating, it takes 4 different stages. The first stage is it takes in primarily their psychological strength. Are they receptive to learning? Do they have enthusiasm to learn? Are they self-disciplined? So then we would say you're going to improve the most, because if we apply coaching to you, you're going to improve at a far quicker rate than the rest of the players, okay? So that's the first part of the rating. The second part is the physical profile. So if we're looking, and it can be designed how you want, but essentially we want players to go into first team as quick as possible if you can, I suppose, and for that to happen they would need to have a certain physical, they need to be physically ahead of the rest of the group. And so it then takes that in as the secondary part. And then for tertiary and quaternary, third and fourth, it takes in the tactical and technical scores and their ratings. So what we're saying is, a player that is advanced psychologically, they're receptive to learning, and they're also physically ahead, then when we apply coaching to that, their technical scores are going to soar, they're going to come up quicker. So using metrics and algorithms and ratings very clearly, we can cut through and see, accurately forecast who's going to develop the most and the quickest just by completing those assessments. A very powerful tool, essentially, in your player development. That's the first part. Second part, accelerate player development. Accurate values, focused development on specific strengths and development needs. So, we can now look at fine details on what we need to improve upon. We see demo player 15 there has strong scores in terms of dribbling, running with the ball and disguise. However, we can look specifically, okay, maybe we need to apply some coaching to their one-touch pass and their receiving skills and that kind of thing. So we can accurately specify which skills they need to work upon, taking a far more fine-tuned approach to our development of players. Very focused. And then the final part, just skip that on. Maximise philosophy profile development. So identify the player profile range and trends. So if we are looking to develop technical players, specifically good receivers of the ball, they can consistently at a high, in this environment, they can receive the ball over and over and over again, and that's how we have philosophy. We can see exactly and benchmark the level of performance that we want. We can see receiving, safe side, back foot left, back foot right, those areas there. We're looking at that as a benchmark. We want a player that is going to be able to successfully do that most of the time. We can now develop the profile of what we're looking for within the club. We can accurately do that in terms of development. And that's player profiles. Third one is team profile. Team ratings, team and group skill level performance of measurement. So this is the average of all the team, essentially, of that team rating. So for short passing, you can see the team's rating, the group strength is 85. And what that's going to allow you to do then, as you go and do that, is you can have an advanced coaching strategy. Select team skill levels for most productive development. So if you can see, in the technical attacking area, we can see crossing is low at 78, attacking heading at 72 from this group. So now the coach can then have an advanced coaching strategy rather than, we all have the syllabuses, I imagine, of course. However, we can take an approach where we're really catering to this group's needs. Do we want to? And we provide the system and the results. The coaching academies will then go and choose exactly how they want to use this to then go and more productively enhance their development. So in this scenario, what we would say is, with this group, if we take them through a phase of learning on attacking in the wide areas, finishing from crosses and attacking heading technique, we know that we can productively get this group's skill competencies up, can't we? And that's essentially the basis and foundation to team profile and what you can do with that. And of course, it's comprehensive in terms of the four-corner long-term player development model. We have the technical, tactical, split into two in attacking and defending. You've got the tactical, learning profile, the psychological and physical. Nothing's missed within our assessment methods. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to let this one run for a moment. This is player ratings, and this is the most important and groundbreaking, essentially, part of the system that we have. and we'll take you through how the player ratings can be used for coaching staff to go and enhance their on-field performance and development of their groups of players. This is pushing the industry forward in terms of the insights that they can get. Player names across the top again. Left-hand side, overall defender, midfielder, attacker, indicator. More specifically, every single position on the pitch for them, and the player rating is produced given the player's skill strengths of all the different skills from the position profile. So, first thing to do, identify outstanding players in every position on the pitch. So, player 11, centre attacking midfield, currently, from their current performance levels, they're the most outstanding player at centre attacking midfield. Player 14, the striker. Player 3, most advanced centre defender as we are at the moment, okay? From the group that you have. Determine versatile players for multiple positions. We can see from this player, maybe this player was used as a centre attacking midfielder all the time. And we can see now, they actually have a skill set that is transferable to right defence. They're very competent there, as well as left and right wing attacker. Helps you plan and gives you more, empowering the coach more insight. Skill level insights for multiple formations. So we can see from this group of players that we have, in centre attacking midfield, we have player 11 and player 14 are really strong in centre attacking midfield. So it gives you an insight, you know, if I play with two centre attacking midfielders, I know this group, given their skill competencies, are going to be performing at a stronger level as if I maybe use one centre attacking midfielder. And again, it's up to the club how they want to develop the players. You know, if you're at a point where you'd like to do it more on a results basis, maybe you'd use this more closely in terms of using those formation insights for your strongest. However, if you're looking at development, you know, you can say, well, you know, player 14 needs to develop more as a defensive centre midfielder. Again, go into the assessment. What are the skills that they need to develop in order to do that? So it's completely intuitive again. This is an intuitive system for the coaches, the players, to just empower them to do a lot more and productively develop their players and squads. Substitution strategy insights. So if we look at the right defence profile, we've got three players of almost the same rating. We've got player 11, 90, 88 for 14, and player 4. And so we know that within a game, you know, we're there, maybe with your iPad, you go, okay, well, I can put this player in now and I know we're going to maintain team performance. Really good insight there. You can maximise squad strength. So player 3, this is the centre defender player rating. Player 3 is the strongest at 91, very, very strong and further advanced. And so player 2, just next to it, is 87, so slightly behind. Again, do we, you know, and now we ask ourselves a question. Firstly, what do they need to do to get to that 91? Intuitive, go into the assessment specifically for that individual, maybe design a program. You can see exactly which skills they need to develop on. And then also, you know, if we need more squad depth, more squad strength, then we see the other players, 85 out of 100. You know, we can look at maybe which skills they need to develop to now get a more whole squad strength essentially for your group of players. And the final two parts of the player ratings is position-specific development. Select skills for players to develop position-specific expertise. So if we look at player 2, currently they perform at the highest level on the positions as a centre defender, 87. However, at the moment, we can see they're 84 for a right wing, 82 for a left winger, 83 as a striker. Now, depending on how you want to develop the players, we can now say, okay, we need to give them some time, some playing time as an attacking player if they're going to develop those type of skills. Or you could say, you know, we want to focus on what they're doing well at, and so we develop that. So we can now give position-specific development. And the key here is that we can now see, using the assessment method with quality controls or using the video analysis, using data from the clubs, in terms of feeding it into the system, we can now specifically see the range of performance that separates within the players. We're not guessing, we're getting down to a specific number of performance, position strength, okay? And then we can define the stages of development. So we have a group of players here, we can clearly define the range that's separating the players. So we see player 6 there has a variety of performance ratings, you know, some lower ones, some sort of moderate, two strong ones. We can see that player there. We can also see, excuse me, player 12 is quite far behind from the group, we can see, in terms of performance rating, and player 11 is further ahead. Again, you can now benchmark within your groups. What are we looking for? When, you know, you can say, when do we see exactly they're ready to go to that next level? We can get it down to a science and a number, and it just empowers us to productively place our players in the most appropriate environment for development, I suppose. And that's player ratings. Final application is player comparison. So player profiles compared side by side. Really get to the detail of how we're going to compare them. Player ratings, the line graph presentation of both players, and then we have the superior skills display, and we have the technical scores and skills down there on that side. And we see left-hand side, superior skills display versus the player 8, I believe that is, on the right-hand side. Looking into more detail, so this is, we can discover why players outperform in specific positions. So what we have is we've just uploaded the technical attacking skills there. So why does player 1, we'll call them on the left-hand side, perform stronger in centre attacking midfield to player 2? Well, we go straight into the profiles, we compare them side by side, and we say, if this player 2 wants to get to the level of player 1, then their crossing we need to improve and get that up to a stronger level. Again, we can coach that and develop that if we want. And then the attacking heading as well is an important part that they're behind in their development. So we can discover why players outperform in certain positions, and then concentrate player development. We can then conclusively communicate to the player to give them everything they need to know to become that successful football player that we brought up in the beginning. So we can go to player 2 and we can go exactly what they need to know. So that's the end of our presentation to display to you how the PSD system works at the highest level, and also how it works at every level of the game, from elite and premier levels to youth and grassroots levels. And what we're looking for essentially is to work with forward-thinking clubs and organisations who have a culture or can develop a culture that will truly embrace this new approach to the game. And so, you know, what we'll do is we'll wrap that up there, and if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss that further, we're at the stand 226 to have a discussion about it if you like. But I'd just like to thank you very much for your time and taking a look at our system, and thank you very much. Thank you.